had been waiting so long to bring this next guest to you. A dear friend of mine, Kristan Cole, is a real estate leader, speaker, and business expansion expert with 40 years of industry success. She's been recognized as a Realtor of the Year, a 5-time Best of Valley winner, 2018 Inman Innovator finalist. She ranks among the top real estate professionals in the U.S. and globally. As CEO, she leads a nationwide team of 30 plus locations, overseeing 5,000 transactions and nearly $3 billion in sales in 2024. She's a mentee of John Maxwell, who you know is dear to me, and Gary Keller, and she's a sought after authority on leadership. She's also the founder of Kristen's Home for Hope, where she empowers leaders to achieve extraordinary wealth, growth, and community impact. So with that said, we're excited to bring Kristan Cole on. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Power Up Your Life podcast. I'm Kelly Resendez.
And I'm Mandy McAllister.
And we are so blessed to have, I like to say, the Kristan Cole on. For those of you not in real estate, that might not mean a lot, but for a lot of you in real estate, you've probably heard her name and witnessed her success on the scene. And so, Kristan, we're just so excited to have you here. So to start, if you wouldn't mind sharing just a little bit about your journey.
My parents moved to Alaska in 1969. And so I was in the 3rd grade and we lived in a tiny little town of about 200 people. I was the only 3rd grader. My sister, brother, and I made up 3 of the 9 kids in the K through 12, and lived there in Whittier, and then moved to Wasilla in 1972. And when we moved to Wasilla, we lived there. Well, I lived there a long time. And graduated from Palmer High School, but my parents were super young when they had us. And unfortunately, when I was 12, my brother was 11, and my mom decided one day to go on an interview and never came home. And my dad worked on the North Slope, so in very short order, my brother and I became homeless, and that was a very challenging time when you're 12 years old. I think about it sometimes, and I obviously have forgiven my parents. We've reconciled after all, or actually a long time ago, and I really, a lot of people might get upset, but I look at it this way: I'm really kind of grateful, because if all of that hadn't happened to me and my brother, we wouldn't be who we are today.
Oh, right.
So my sister took a different path. And my brother and I ended up being invited at one point to move in with some people who were moving to another city in Alaska. So we moved there to Palmer when I was in the 8th grade, ended up graduating from Palmer High School, and then went on to college and was the first one to graduate from college. And so then got into real estate. That's what I studied in college. I double majored in finance and real estate. And that's all I've done. Obviously when I was in college, I waitressed and pumped gas and did all those things. But after college, real estate was really the only profession I've ever known or ever had after 41 years.
Oh my
so
goodness.
That's my short story.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about your real estate. Like, it's not like you're in real estate. Like, you have created an empire, really, based off of your leadership. Tell us a little bit about how you did that.
So I started, I went back to Wasilla after I graduated from college and started selling real estate in 1984. And, really, I would say dug in and was attempting to build a business at a pretty young age. I was 22 when I started. When I was 24, I bought my first franchise, a Remax franchise. And then when I was 29, I bought a second franchise, second real estate franchise, and was building a team and a business. And in 2012, I actually then expanded into Arizona, where I went to college, and bought an office there. And now I have 15 offices here in Arizona. And we have what you would call expansion teams. So basically
Mhm.
licensing your likeness in 6 other states. And they're relatively small. The biggest footprint I have is in Arizona and Alaska.
Yeah. Amazing.
That is expansive for sure. I mean, that, Kelly, you're not wrong. That is a complete empire. I feel like that gives you a lot of data points, though, in terms of you have helped nurture the growth and success of hundreds, maybe thousands of agents, right? I'm curious about what is the thing that you see that successful people do that unsuccessful people don't do?
Well, it's pretty simple in my opinion. Lack of preparation. So what do successful people do? They're highly scheduled, highly prepared, and they're willing to consistently get up every day and do what no one else wants to do. And I know that sounds simple, and it is simple, but
Mm.
and it can be very boring, but I'll take consistency over talent any day of the week. It's
Absolutely.
consistency. And the only way you can be consistent is to be prepared. And the only way you're prepared is to be highly scheduled.
Oh, so good.
Being the woman at the front of the room, I feel like there's the asking for help stuff. I think male counterparts, one thing they do better than us largely is asking for help. Tell me a little bit about being the woman at the front. Like, was there lone wolf feelings? Was there, loneliness feelings? And how did you deal with that?
So I think for a long time, it was tough because when you're building a business in Alaska, you're geographically really cut off from the US. Anytime you want to get on a plane and go to a conference, just a plane ticket could be $1,300. So it was expensive. I had 5 kids and I was a single parent. So, you know, it, so what I did is I really worked hard on how do I surround myself with other people without surrounding myself with other people. And I did that through, you have to remember, this is before podcasts and things like that. Um, Cassette tapes and books. And the one that had the biggest impact on me, bar none, was John Maxwell's um, Impact Club. And so initially you got a CD, or I mean a cassette, and then this little workbook that came with it, and then you got a CD. And today it's obviously all online. But I really felt like John's leadership helped me significantly, especially because I was such a long way away. And sometimes I'll give you an example. I think most people, we call it the lower 48, they, take it for granted that they can go to concert when they want to, that they can go to an NFL game when they want to, that they can go to a professional baseball game, basketball game when they want to. I hadn't been to any of those till very late in life. So think
Mm.
about that. So if you've never been, the first 5 years I lived in Arizona, I went to all those things all the time, right? So it's the same thing when you live here and you have the opportunity to go to seminars and be taught by people, and Phoenix is the mecca of
Ah,
seminars. When you're in Alaska, you just don't have that. So again, when I was here, or when I moved here or bought a second home here, I actually started putting on a lot of seminars as well. And so being the woman at the front of the room, did it feel lonely? Um, I felt, I would say, different. And I would say, Mandy, that only changed when I got in the room with other people who had gone and done what I wanted to do. And then I felt completely normal.
ah,
So I say it all the time. At some point, if you're going to grow your leadership, you're going to get to a point where to surround yourself with other big thinkers, you're going to have to get on a plane.
ah, so
So,
good. So good, which I'm
yeah.
coming to get on a plane to come see you
Yes, you
next week
are.
in
I'm going to see
Phoenix.
you
So
on
I'm
Sunday.
super excited. We're hanging out with John Maxwell down there next week, which is amazing. What would you say, just because a lot of what you've done has been different than other people? So
Mm.
take, for example, the expansion that you did within Keller Williams. I had the opportunity many years ago to go and learn from you, even though I wasn't in real estate, because I believe some of those concepts apply to any team that you're trying to grow. What would you say is unconventional about the way that you've led or the way that you've expanded your business?
And it probably didn't dawn on me till recently. I thought, what is it? What is it about me that makes me different, if you will, or what is my uniqueness? And I don't think it's unique, but I do think it's really rooted in the fact that when you grow up in Alaska, so just think about this, we went to the grocery store every 2 months. Okay, so just let
That
that
sounds
sink
like
in.
heaven to me. That sounds like
And,
heaven, let me tell you.
and you had to get on a train and ride the train through the mountains,
Mm,
and then drive to Anchorage. And so what I learned was, um, I think we live oftentimes today kind of in a microwave society where we
mhm.
want everything super fast. And I really learned delayed gratification. I learned how to prepare, because if you went to the store and you weren't prepared and didn't have your list of what you were going to need for the next 2 months, you were in trouble, right?
Yeah.
So I learned early on, and also learned the benefits of delayed gratification. So being willing to do the hard things, being willing to be prepared, because you knew at some point you were going to get the benefit of that. And it's the same way in business. A lot of people just don't stick with it long enough, you
Mm,
know, and to really see the results. So what I would say is, if you're one of those people that are really wondering, well, can I really do this? I would say go be around somebody that's already done it, so you can borrow on their belief
mm,
while you're walking it out. I think that's key, is to be able to borrow on their belief,
yeah,
somebody who's already done it.
yeah.
But
Oh,
delayed
I see
gratification.
that so much. With our members in GoBundance Women, that is, sometimes you have to borrow the light that someone else sees in you and in your business and where you're going, because the real growth happens in the boring, messy middle. That montage that happens for Rocky, that, it takes 30 seconds for you to see that montage. Well, that actually happened over the course of 3 years. You don't see that in real life. So I'm curious about when you're looking to figure something out, like in this progression, you have to feel stuck or have felt stuck in
Mhm.
that boring, messy middle, right? What do you do to get yourself unstuck or find clarity when you don't feel clear? What are some actionable tips?
So to find clarity when I don't feel clear is, I really always come back to, well, what is my big why and does this fit into it? And
Mm,
if I'm not feeling clear, maybe it's because it's not a fit. So I
mhm.
have what's called my 10 filters of opportunity, so that I run everything through. And so it may be great, it may make a lot of money, but if it doesn't really go through those filters and come out the other side is still a good opportunity, then it really doesn't matter how much money it's going to make me. When I was younger, I had time on my hands, right? Um, but I didn't have influence and I didn't have money. Well, the more successful you become, you have more influence and you have more money, but you don't have as much time. So if I'm
Mm,
really evaluating something, or if I feel stuck or unsure, should I go after this or not? I run it through those filters, and I really think about, ultimately, is this really part of my big why of why I'm doing what I'm doing? And if it's not, then I'm really not going to be that passionate about it. And if you're not that passionate about it, then you're really not going to have the success that you could. And so I pass on it. That's kind of how I think about it.
oh, that's great. I love that you have an actual system to be able to run decisions through, because a lot of times when we're stuck, we don't even realize, like, what decision do I need to make? And when you make it a decision, then you can kind of move forward with a hard no or a hard yes. So, kind of circling back to leadership,
Mm.
you have done a phenomenal job leading this organization. That has required a lot of trust and delegation. So many people are afraid to let go, and they're micromanaging, but they're not going to be able to scale until they do that. What tips would you share with our audience around how you did that?
I would say it's still a learning process for sure. I don't think we're ever 100% um, really easy at letting go.
Yeah.
I would say this. I think for the most part, that as your business gets bigger, oftentimes you take on additional responsibilities. And I think what we fail to do is to move something off of our plate.
Right.
And my husband is a great reminder of that to me, when I've decided to take on another opportunity, he'll say, what's coming off of your plate? And I don't want anything to come off my plate, right? But it really forces me to look at it and narrow my focus. And typically the reason I don't want it to come off my plate is probably fear of somebody can't do it as good as me, fear that honestly, that they're going to screw it up, fear that they're going to make mistakes. And what I had to learn, and I learned this, I would say in 2010, was that they're not going to do it as good as me initially. But if I don't allow them to, and to mentor them as they learn through it, then I'm going to have that job forever. And that's going to keep me from the other opportunities that are presenting themselves that I can't take advantage of because I'm still over here trying to do this. And that was a great learning lesson for me, because I was very, very good at something, and handing that off to somebody that wasn't as good, it doesn't mean that they can't get better. They can. And so the one thing you can't do is just abdicate the whole responsibility. So what I mean by that is you can help them and mentor them along the way so that they can, I call it jumping the curve. They don't have to go down through everything that you went through to get good. They can just jump the curve with your mentorship. And so I'm certainly not perfect at it by any stretch. And it really does take a lot of discernment to determine whether or not that person is really ready for those additional responsibilities. Because I think the worst thing you can do is put additional responsibilities on somebody that's truly not ready. And what I mean by ready, I'm not just talking about, are they ready as a leader in your organization, but it's called vision to reality. And every 90 days, my top people fill this out. And on page 1, there's 10 questions, and it really says, where are you at now, 1 to 10, and where do you want to be? And what's keeping you from it? Because I'm really looking at the whole person. And a few years ago, there was a situation that came up, and I sat someone down and I said, your audio doesn't match your video. What you're saying here that's important to you,
I like that.
and what you want, this doesn't match. And I said, let me mother you for a minute. Let me tell you where this train is headed if we can't make this match. And it was probably one of the hardest conversations I've ever had to have. But he emailed me, I want to say less than 2 weeks ago, and just told me that, what that meant to him. Because it's so easy when you're in your 30s, that 35 to 40-year-old, it's really super easy. I think to go down some paths that don't line up with what you say your true north is, what you say your big why is, what you say is important. And I think that's how some people get off track. And so I also feel like as a leader, their personal lives, their family lives is part of my responsibility too.
Wow.
What a beautiful way to put that, and it's loving, it's this idea of kind versus nice. To be nice would be not to say the thing that could come off maybe of a way that was unanticipated, but to be kind, you got to say it, because you want them to have this better life for themselves.
You do,
Yeah.
but here's what I also learned, Mandy. Telling someone something usually doesn't work, but great questions make hard conversations easier.
Oh, so good.
Exactly. Oh, I love that so much. I also really love that we just kind of brushed under the rug here that you've got 5 children.
Well, they're all
That's well, yes, and when you were scaling this business, they spend some time as littles. I think one thing I hear a lot, I am a commercial real estate investor, and one thing I hear a lot is, I can't spend more time underwriting deals because I need to be there for my kid. I need to be momming for my kids, especially coming from, I was a single mom for some time too. And anyway, I'm curious, talk to that mom that doesn't want to spend the time scaling her business or has a feeling of mom guilt. What is something that you did to prioritize things the right way so that you built great kids and built a great business?
I'm not going to say this is the answer for everyone, but I'll tell you legitimately what I did. I had to make some decisions about my life. And I knew that, number one, my faith was important to me. My job was important to me, my business, and my kids were important to me. And so I made the decision that I was going to give up, for lack of a better word, maybe some social things that other people thought were important and or maybe important to them. I'll give you an example. Let's just say the Chamber of Commerce was having a mixer at 6:00 at night. I never went to any of those. And it doesn't mean they're wrong. They could be great networking opportunities. But what I am saying is there was a period of time, and understand it doesn't have to be, I understood it doesn't have to be this way forever. But for this time in my life as a single parent with 5 kids who are very involved in sports, something had to give. And it wasn't going to be the glass ball of my children that got dropped. So I just made a decision that church was important to me. Being at all of my kids' events was important to me. And if that meant I had to restructure my day and work in the evenings or work early in the morning and to make all that happen, I did. And the thing that I was willing to give up, and I hope everybody just breathes when I say this was just my own conscious choices. So I did not go to lunch with people because I would instead reallocate that time so that I could take time off between 3 and 5 to go to a soccer game, or to go to a cheerleading competition. And so I just prioritized my time as to what was the most important things to me. And it really boiled down to 3 things: my kids, my business, and my faith. And I was willing to let the rest kind of go by the wayside. And it wasn't forever, but it was for that time in my life.
Yeah.
So
That's amazing. I mean, the one thing that really is so clear in this conversation is the intention that you bring into your life. And that obviously wasn't modeled for you, right? You didn't have the upbringing that a lot of people did. Was there just an awakening at some point that really created that intentionality? Because you really demonstrate that you can have it all. You can be a mom, you can grow a business. I know you take care of your faith and your physical well-being as well. And you're just a great giver and supporter of other people. Was there kind of an awakening? Was it always that way, or?
So I would say initially fear drove that,
Yeah.
fear of not having enough, of not, fear of not being taken care of.
Yeah.
So definitely, I mean, I specifically can remember being in the 7th grade and having 2 pair of pants. One were blue, one were green, and they were corduroy, and there was no corduroy left on the thighs, So I would say initially in my life, I personally believe, looking back on it, fear drove a lot of that intentionality.
Yeah.
I would say later in life, especially in my 20s, I really believed I learned a lot of that at church. I really believe I learned a lot of it. And I don't mean, and I don't want this to sound churchy. I just want it to sound how it really was. I truly read Proverbs a lot because there's wisdom there.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't just about the church necessarily, but it was really about, I'm pretty literal. So if I either believe the Bible's true or I don't. So if I believe it's true, then I was very literal about the things I learned. And I look back and I can just see that it's probably not the answer people want, but it was my answer to consistency, to doing hard things. I see in lots of places in the Bible where people had to do hard things because they believed it was right.
Yep.
So I think that's where I learned it. And then it just became part of who I am. And then surrounding myself with other people who had similar values. We didn't think the same, but we had similar values about how you treat people and how you lead people and, what's important in life. Because at the end of this life, there's not that many things that are that important.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say
Completely.
I would just say it was a progression. Fear probably drove it first. Then, understanding universal truths through the Bible and implementing them. And that doesn't mean it was easy. It wasn't easy.
Right.
But
Just
but I
because
felt
it's what
like
you've always, sorry.
I just said I felt like I was standing on true principles
Yeah.
Mm.
that were timeless.
I think that's my primary takeaway of this conversation, Kelly, that it's your principles. You have such a decision filter and a thought through intentional discernment on each piece of your life. So decisions become easier to get you in the direction of where you want to go, this North Star, because they're informed by all of these decision making filters. It's like the Ray Dalio book, Principles. My primary takeaway is you got to have principles, right? Like I very much enjoyed getting to see your principles on display here. And the idea of growth is consistency, and consistency is boring. So it's embracing that boring that sometimes gets you through the big swings into big success. Kelly, what were your favorite takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one is just you are a role model to so many people out there. And you aren't out there bragging about it or whatnot, but just that your level of influence comes from who you're being. And you really do emulate a successful businesswoman that's scaled without sacrifice and has done it in a way that you've let go, and you're continuously improving as well. So you have been an amazing guest. And one thing that we always love to do in GoBundance and on the Power Up Your Life podcast is, how can we support you? Is there a resource, connection? I'm sure you're growing your teams down there in Arizona or whatnot, but how can we support you, Kristen?
You know, Kelly, just your friendship, even over the last 6 months, has been amazing. We had a great call, I don't know, a month or so ago.
Yeah.
So I think, and I think for women, being able to reach out to other women who are successful and don't have to apologize for their success, I think is
Mm.
important. And John Maxwell wrote a book called Intentional Living, and he really, and I'm just speaking to this filter thing again, because I think, Mandy, it's really important. He really said, if in your 20s you really decide on about 15 different things, that then really all you're doing is just managing to them for the rest of your life. And I think that's true. But I do think that women, I think, sometimes feel like they have to apologize for success. Trust me on one thing: the success that you have will be just as much an attractor as it will be a repellent. As you can imagine, not everybody loves Kristan Cole, because if you're around me, you find out real fast that I'm not a person who enjoys or accepts excuses. And so sometimes that focus can appear rude, and it's not meant to be rude. It's meant to help all of us step up and be our best selves. And sometimes those are, if you're not one of those people that want to do that, you're not going to be very comfortable around me. And that's okay. And that's also something I had to learn to be okay with.
I'm
Right.
still
Yeah.
working on that.
I love it. Yes. What's
Yeah.
the best way for our listeners to get a hold of you?
My name is spelled weird. It's with an A. So Kristen at KristenCole.com is my email address. And that's probably the best way to get a hold of me. Yes, I have Instagram and Facebook and all of that, but I won't bore them with that. If they really want to reach out to me, just email me. I
Awesome.
I do read every single one of my emails.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, Kristen, it has been such a blessing having you. And, just you are a mentor to me. And I'm just very, very appreciative of just the light that you bring into this world. So thank you so much for joining us. And for anyone listening, make sure you check out Power Up Your Life now to find all our resources to help you scale your business without sacrifice. Big thanks to GoBundance Women, of course, who's always making these things possible to bring awesome guests like Kristen to us. So we will see you on the next episode. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Kristen.